us and what you're doing wrong, how you can get it right. Two ladies with me on set. I would like to introduce first the lady on black. I'm talking about the lady with a voice many admire. Iya Ode. Iya Ode is of the Look Sarah Leadership Foundation. Thank you very much, Iya, for coming around.
Thank you, Saxon. Great to be here.
Great to be here. I would really love to hear you. For those of you who don't know, Iya Ode used to be one of the very popular voices on Nigeria Info here in Abuja. All right, sitting next to her is Mete Edekobi. She is the Special Duties and State Operations Director of the NOA.
Yeah, you're correct. Thank you for having me.
All right, thank you very much for coming around. Let me just start with you. Change was supposed to begin with us. Whatever happened to that slogan, right? That campaign.
Yes. Well, indeed, change begins with you, as we say it. Change begins with me. It means whatever you expect somebody else to do, you are doing it yourself. And the change begins with me. May have started as a campaign or maybe a slogan, but something you should remember to do.
Okay.
Whenever you remember, you recall that, okay, like you said, you're driving, like we say here in Nigeria, bumper to bumper. Is it right? I know the right thing to do. So that change should begin with me, not somebody else. And that was the message. And that still is the message.
Yeah, but it seemed not to have gone as far as we thought it should. I don't even hear it anymore.
Oh, well, it's like you read the Bible or you read the Quran. It is personal to you. What resonates comes to you as a person. And there's no place where you have read in your Bible or the Quran that says do wrong. So, but you see others that have done wrong in the Bible or the Quran, and you learn from their error. And you've seen people who do right in the Bible and the Quran, and you follow through. So whatever message we are sending even today, you're saying, I'm putting before you right and wrong. Choose right. And so when you tell somebody, a child, to choose right, don't put your hand in the fire. You are not expecting the child to forget it. So if you are saying the same thing to adults, you do not expect the adult to forget that it was a campaign, so that time has passed. It does not pass. You're supposed to imbibe it. And you don't need anybody to follow you with a cane or a whip to say you must know the right thing to do. You know it. Why are you not doing it?
Okay, well, she said it right. Now, yeah, let's roll back. Who against indiscipline? I don't know. Well, it's not like I was particularly know exactly how it happened then, but we know that at that time it was a very strict era. I think that was the military era, and everybody kept to the rule. I don't know if you did. I don't know how old you are, so I was going to ask you.
45 in October.
You'll be 45 in October. Okay, yeah. So you can tell us what against indiscipline.
Well, from what I remember, yes, it was a very, very interesting time. Though there was a lot of brutality, there was a lot of there were questions raised about that era. But then Nigerians followed the rules. So it was the time of it was a mixed match. So like, yes, we're to follow the rules, we're to do the right thing and all of that. That's one of the other slogans, by the way. Do the right thing.
Do the right, okay.
Right. So we're to follow the rules, and the rules were followed. But then there was a lot of punishment and brutality on the other end when those rules were not followed. And a lot of people did not like that. Yes, war against indiscipline, that, lasted for what, a year or so? From 84 into 85, during that era, when our present president was head of state, right?
Military.
And things turned around in very interesting ways. Things did turn around. People kept to the rules. People stayed on cue.
That's because they were afraid of being punished.
Absolutely.
There's a repercussion.
So there's a repercussion for doing that. But then really, look at it. What Mete said about good and evil. Choose good that you will have life, right? But if you choose evil, what's the consequence? What's the repercussion? There's always a repercussion. There's always a consequence for wrong behavior. And that's what we actually saw in during that period. Yes.
Yep.
It was brutal at some
I
point,
also feel in
though.
the case of is what they call dangle the carrot, hang the sword and dangle the carrot, so whichever. When she was talking about the war against indiscipline, I saw you thinking like,
Yeah, because it was something that we Y Brigade that still
Absolutely.
exists.
oh, the
The
white
Y
brigade.
Brigade, yeah, they still exist.
Some people don't know that.
Yes,
that it's
they still
there.
exist.
I didn't know that.
In most states, they do a lot of crowd control, and when there's environmental sanitation, they are the ones who go out
To
because
enforce.
they don't carry arms, they don't carry anything, so they are taught to repeat these slogans, these teachings. They go to schools, primary schools, secondary schools, and they teach them all the core values. So we still do that. So I was waiting for her to finish that. Coming out of that, we have the White Brigade, and all they did then was to civil. What would that word be? Civil and crowd control.
Yeah.
They didn't beat anybody. They didn't do any of what those who should. But if you look carefully at the Nigerian society, we know what to do. If you just a Nigerian travels to Benin Republic, he will follow all the rules he meets there.
Tell me about it.
He will not do anything wrong. But as soon as we get down the aircraft, I'm telling you, it's like all of us.
We were
We just
talking
talked
about
about
it
it.
before.
As soon as the plane alights,
I actually said, as soon as the plane is hovering
Yes,
over Lagos,
yes,
you that's when
I was
when
not
our
here when you
consciousness
had that
changes.
conversation.
Yes.
but
Yeah.
as soon as we see the skylines of Nigeria, even when the pilot
it's
is
a
saying
mindset shift.
everybody should be seated,
Seated.
no.
Yeah.
But when we were going, even when they tell you to stand up, you will not stand up.
Right.
You will wait until you get there. So it means it's something
Okay.
we know to do, but we refuse to do. But because if you know what to do outside and you don't want it done in your home,
Why?
exactly, are you undermining your own country? Are you saying that we are people that are lawless, and so the only way you get through things is to be lawless? It's like something you are telling yourself you must do, because we all do. We all sit right. Even when you're passing through security in other countries, they don't smile. They don't even say how now, welcome,
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah.
But you just know to behave yourself. They are not looking at your face. They are just doing exactly what they want to do.
Yes.
It's painful.
All right, so let's look at many of the very popular places we break all these rules. Let's start with the road.
Okay.
Like, I was telling my boss that I read in one post, someone said, in other parts of the world, green is go, amber is go with caution,
Yeah.
red is stop.
Stop.
Right.
In Nigeria, green is go, amber is keep going.
Yes.
Yeah,
Red
red is
just-
check if there's no police or road safety. Then go fast.
Yeah.
My boss said no. Green is go, amber is go, keep going. Red is just continue going.
It sounds so funny, and it's it's a joke, but it's the reality of what we are facing and what we are faced with right now. It's a sad reality too, because as Mete said, we know what is right to do. Red is stop. Green is go. Amber is wait small. And just be
Just
cautious.
cautious.
Just wait, right? But then the way we break this and flaunt it, it's
That's what it is.
befuddling. I remember a time, because you're trying to teach your children the right thing to
All
do
right.
and all of that. And I remember a time I broke a traffic light. I broke a red light, and my son was about 6, 7 then. And I was taking him to school, and I saw we're getting late. I was like, no, let me just go. And when we passed, we had passed though, and I thought everything was okay. Then my son now goes, Mommy, that light, was it red? Oh my
question.
goodness. I felt so ashamed. And I had to apologize to him. I said, see, I am sorry for teaching you a bad example. I'm sorry for showing you that wrong example. I did something wrong, and I'm sorry about it. And I said, "No, it's okay." But that taught me a lesson.
All right.
That, and I wonder what kind of teachings we're actually passing on. When I see parents with their children in their cars, breaking through red lights, driving recklessly, and all of that, I feel sorry for the children, because I wonder, what lessons are we teaching these young ones? because it's a cycle.
Yes.
And if we don't break it, then it's going to break us. That's the point.
Okay, that's strong. And but very quickly, you can be part of this conversation. Reach us on our phone line 081 177 82020. Tell us, what are some of the many culture of indiscipline that you see exhibited that really gets you angry, that you frown out? Do share with us instances. Maybe just send it to our phone line, WhatsApp and text only. And then we'll take a feature now, and this feature is going to take a look at some road traffic offenses, and when we get back, we'll have this conversation with Mete and Iya.
In Nigeria, unsafe acts of exceeding expected speed limits, use of vehicles with unauthorized plate numbers, overtaking at ill points, overloading, use of phones while on the wheel, failure to comply with traffic lights and signs, driving against traffic, aggressive use of the horn, use of provocative gestures, and verbal abuse are just some of the numerous traffic violations we adopt as a lifestyle. These traffic violations have been observed to be a rampant offense for both private vehicle owners and commercial drivers, and in some cases, official vehicles. In a bid to maximize profit, many commercial drivers ignore traffic regulations. They drive on the shoulder of the road or pedestrian walkways when there is a gridlock, stop to pick up passengers at undesignated spots, overload their vehicles, and ignore other rules. These actions, they presume, will reduce unproductive time spent on the road and translate into more money. Motorists often commit a combination of these offenses, which oftentimes results in accidents, sometimes fatal. Some vehicle operators drive in directions prohibited by law, claiming that they are in a hurry or that the other routes approved by law are blocked due to heavy vehicular movement. As simple as the failure to display a reflective warning sign at the point of breakdown of a vehicle on the road may appear, or operating a private car as a commercial car, or driving with a dim or no headlight or indicator light may seem. They attract severe penalties. According to the National Bureau of Statistics data for the second quarter of 2021, speed violation was the highest cause of road accidents in Nigeria, as 2,162 violations were recorded, followed by lights and sign violations at 440. Wrongful overtaking has been an offense perpetrated by many and is recorded as the third major cause of accidents at 303. Dangerous driving and burst tires complete the top 5 significant causes of accidents for the period, and they are recorded as 251 and 189 respectively. The NBS records that 1,604 of these accidents involved cars, 1,154 were motorcycles, 821 minibuses, 634 trucks, and 222 tricycles. It goes further to say that 3,324 of these accidents involved commercial vehicles, 1,766 private cars, and 44 were government-owned vehicles. Ogun State recorded the highest number of causes with 337, while the FCT comes next with 252 cases. Nasarawa State comes closely behind with 242 cases, as Kaduna and Oyo states complete the top 5 with 222 and 152 cases respectively. Several questions are begging for answers. If the road traffic laws are designed to ensure smooth traffic flow and respect for other road users, why do Nigerian motorists violate them at will? Are the enforcement officers doing enough to administer penalties? When the enforcer of the law breaks the law, who sanctions him?
I will try to arrest the car, followed one way, and this is what happened. So now we go do this case now.
It's not like I'm particularly laughing, but that question that the guy asked,
Yeah.
who gonna do this case now? I mean, the VIO was found following one way and end up boom.
I think maybe they believe that under this circumstance that they are in pursuit of an offender, it is not an offense for them to do so. But I believe it is also an offense, just like I'm worried when somebody has offended and you jump into the person's car. I don't know which part of the traffic rule that allows that, because you are not only endangering your own life, because if the person is mad and decides to take you on a stroll, you can't tell where, but I don't know where the rule applies that you should jump into the car of an offender, you know, to make an arrest. But, you know, going by what we have just watched, I think it should be said categorically that the fact that you are trying to catch a thief, that's the offender, and then you do wrong, your wrong still stands out. It does not eliminate the fact that you did wrong, in as much as you were trying to do right, but you don't do right by doing wrong.
Exactly.
So that's why the man's question is apt. Now who go?
Yes, now who go
judge that one?
Because now I'd like to ask you, on the road, what's that thing that really annoys you about other road users? For me, it really annoys me when I'm just behind someone, he's driving in the middle of two lane. He's not here, and I'm confused.
And
it's not trafficating to show whether you want
between lanes, and it's so confusing and very annoying.
Very confusing and annoying. Now, and you know, you can't overtake at the right side, right? Now, yeah, you're trying to overtake here. He now comes here. You're not wondering, guy, can you just decide where you are? That's what annoys me most. For you,
I don't know, many things get to me on the road, but that level of indecision really, and how people just flout traffic rules really gets to me. Why I say this is, people don't realize that there are other road users. So when you are red, when your light is red for you, another person's own is green.
It's green, yes.
Right? But then you just don't care about any other person. And for me, I've talked about this on radio, when I was on radio. I said the road there is where we'll actually see great examples of how selfish Nigerians are. Because you don't care if they're cyclists, you don't care if they're pedestrians. Very important, people who need to cross the road, because they are also road users. You don't care if there are other people coming from whatever side. You're just about yourself, and even if the light is red, you're going anyway, and that is so unfair. So that level of selfishness that we see on the roads, that people just don't care. My own is, I need to move. So whoever it is I offend along the way, fair or foul, I mean, I just take that route.
Yeah,
and it's so unfortunate.
You know, like I say, it used to be patience is a virtue, but right now in Nigeria, it's survival of the fittest. Who can just get it? So on the road, Mete.
Well, I think I would say when you're on a queue, and then you've given the legitimate space between you and the other driver, and somebody just comes and cross you, but the last time you checked there was nobody.
Yes.
So when you turn your eyes, you now see that it's filled. So if you had moved just a little, that would have been an accident. And then what we call the zebra crossing.
Do we have those?
We do. We do. But but zebras, not for human beings. So you know what Nigerians call the zebra crossing? The one that you get there, and if a car sees you right there, she'll stop. They don't care whether you are there. Who sent you to be standing there?
They're waiting for zebras.
You know, the cars at the traffic, they actually stop. They actually park
on
the zebra.
Yes.
On the zebra.
So you don't even have a place to stand. And then the pedestrian bridge. The fact that the pedestrian refuse to use the bridge, but they will rather cross the road and get knocked down by cars. And then sometimes they get to the middle of the road and they are telling a car that is on a high speed to stop so they can cross. You get it. Although they tell you that the pedestrian bridge, you have robbers and people who molest them there. So I don't know how much of that, but those are the things that really baffled me on our road.
Yeah, I've also seen the one who drove from, that is a 4 or 5 lane. He drove from the first lane
All the way.
all the way to the other one, and I was the level which I held my brake like I was sure I was going to hit him.
I think there are just so many things that people need to consider on the road, because when I was learning to drive, the person who taught me says, look, you need to drive like
You're the only sane
yeah,
one.
yeah,
only your head correct.
defensive driving, right? Like only your head
Correct.
correct. I like that one. That's how you drive, because everybody you see on the road is after one thing or the other. So you need to be sane, and you need to drive for all the people around you. That's another thing I learned. How that is possible and how I've managed that, God has seen me through. But honestly, it's something that we need to change. It's not the president that will come and do it for us.
No way.
It is an individual thing. And that's why change begins with me. If I want to see that discipline, I mean, Lee Kuan Yew, of Singapore, he said something really important. If you want to reach your goals and dreams, you cannot do it without discipline. And that's the culture that we need to bring back. So we've dealt on this level of indiscipline for so long, and it's not just on the roads, it's on queues, it's in the banks, it's in schools, it's everywhere you turn.
And our children are picking it up.
In church, maybe there is food being shared. At weddings. I mean, come on, seriously.
Yeah,
it's
so-
just a culture of indiscipline that we need to change.
Yeah, and so
And it's an attitudinal problem.
Absolutely.
A problem of attitude.
She mentioned something earlier, and I think it's a very apt message that we need to take on. That yes, there has been a campaign, do the right thing, change begins with you, war against indiscipline and all of that. But the point of reinforcing that message, I think sometimes that's where we have lost it. To reinforce the message and put the message in people's ears. There's something about reinforced learning.
Yes, power of repetition.
Absolutely. And people need to hear that message over and over again. Maybe they've forgotten, maybe they're just not paying attention when the message is being shared or aired or something. And we need to repeat those messages for people to know.
Yes, I was just going to say, what's the way forward? Because when you keep telling them, but because it's something that, I don't know, some would say it's in the DNA, is in the DNA.
No, it's not there at the end.
Yeah, so I don't know, but so
It's a choice.
Absolutely.
It's
a choice.
been talked about over and over again. So if not, maybe the enforcement officers are not doing enough. But let me take this message very quickly from Ancestor from Apo. He said, it is obvious that painted taxis are not expected to obey traffic rules in the FTT. Unfortunately, law enforcement officials do nothing
They only
when
know
they
them.
commit these offenses.
Yes.
Often the unbelievable traffic we witness every day is as a result of painted taxis and the keke counterparts and others who disobey traffic rules. Then the task force officials are even the greatest problem. The other day, some task force officials jumped into a moving Dangote trailer
Yeah.
Okay.
They do
and
that.
were dragging the wheel
Yes.
with the driver.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was so scary and heartbreaking. I think most Nigerians are not fit for driving anything with driving anything with engine. This is ancestor from our point. Now that is the problem.
Yeah. Some
The
people
enforcement
think-
officers.
And your video showed that feature actually clearly showed that sometimes the enforcement officers are the problem. And this is where NOA, I think NOA needs to do much more. There's so much more that NOA needs to do
True.
with the issues around enforcing discipline. If we want to see a better society, then we all need to work together. But the NOA needs to spearhead this to ensure that
Maybe they should
correct
work
our mindset.
because they cannot really enforce, right?
We are not,
So, but
we are not
they can
you shouldn't park here. You shouldn't have done it this way. Okay. You keep...
yeah, you keep talking. Then
Yeah.
your enforcement officers should keep trying to see that people are being punished, because that's
If
why
people are
they
not
work
punished,
against
they'll keep going on and on. If there's no punishment, if there's no consequence, my husband
Yes.
always says that, see, in Abuja, we're losing so much money from indiscipline. Because people are just indisciplined at different levels, and then if we're not taxing those people for their acts of indiscipline,
yeah.
we're losing so much
Should cost
revenue.
you something.
If people are actually taxed for this, if they are taxed, the right way, not that one that you go to one corner and then
They
they say,
give you
hey,
their own
brother,
receipt
how far,
and then-
what's up, and there's no receipt for the 5,000 that you give,
And
or
you pay
the
into
2,000,
a commercial
or this
account,
or
not
that. You understand? If there is no receipt, if you don't have those tickets like we have abroad and in other
Yes.
places, if you don't have those tickets that are counting against you, you understand? Those tickets are counting against the people that they have violated traffic, they've done this offense, they've done this or that, and they're counted against them. If we don't have such a system in place, this will go on.
Yes, I know that they have the cameras at on traffic lights.
Yeah.
So if you like, enjoy yourself.
That's
Keep
the point.
breaking.
You don't need to jump into anybody's car.
Don't need to jump into
You
anybody's
don't
car.
need to jump into anybody's
That thing
car
is
for
dangerous
anything.
as far as I'm concerned.
It's a hazard.
Like you said, even in Togo, like just close by here,
Yeah.
you see, and you just wonder.
It's just a whole lot of things that need to change from our mindset, and of course the systemic change that needs to happen.
I think it shows that
Yeah.
what we are trying to prove that we are smart. We have some intelligence that is more than the other person. And so sometimes even when you travel out, for those who do, they will tell you that as soon as you get into a place or a space, and you will just do something and the person say,
Where you
Nigeria?
Where you from?
Or sometimes they start off with, you are Africa. And then you say, which part of it? You say Nigeria. You say, oh yeah, Nigeria.
Nigeria.
Now,
Oh, that's true.
let's take it that we are doing the right thing. That is an applaud for the country. If it is the right thing we are doing and you are recognized that, oh, you are a Nigerian and you did this, wow, this is beautiful.
Yeah.
For me, it is big accolade for the country. But if it is for the wrong that they are noticing you and say, oh, you're a Nigerian, I think that is a setback for us. And
I don't know.
we don't need to go that way.
Well, please be part of this conversation once again. Send messages. I see a couple of you trying to call. Please just text or WhatsApp only to our phone line 081 177 820 20. Tell us your contribution. What are some of the many many attitudes that people display that you really frown at and think we should change? If you want to provide a solution or two, would appreciate it. Anyway, I like the fact that you are just supposed to reorientate our mind, tell us this and all. It's too baby grammar. Many people don't seem to, once you just turn the other way, like when we go out to ask people questions, they'll tell you, oh yes, people should be doing it, but they are actually one of those breaking it. So it's plenty grammar. Are you working with security agencies to see that all your grammar translates to something?
Yeah, the NOA is one organization that must work with everybody, must work with every organization, every ministry of government. So anything that is going on, we are part of it. It's like we are nosy. You must put your nose inside every stuff. You work with different organizations. And then, whether we like it or not, it's just is a problem of attitude. Like she said, it begins from the home. She made a mistake one day and she ensured that she put it right, that child, it gets into the child's psyche that I did wrong. I repent of that wrong. You cannot do it because it is completely wrong. But some of us as parents, we it's like the dining table for us. You tell your child, oh, who is that? It's Uncle John. Tell him I'm sleeping. Is that NOA that will come and tell your child that thing your father said is wrong? Or your child wants to take
just
exam.
as little as that.
Yes,
Absolutely.
your child wants to take exam. And the child says, my teacher is always failing me. He's doing like this. Say, okay, I will go and see your teacher. It will not happen again. And you go to see the teacher. Or you do something that makes the child accelerated from wherever he or she is. And you think the child is dumb. The child knows that you did something to help the child.
Yeah.
What have you taught that child? You've already taught the child that when you also become a parent, that's the way to go. So his attitude is just the style. We hear that they do all underage children driving cars. Is it the police that should tell the parents that your child is not yet 18, which is the legal age, so you should, or is it NOA that should go and tell a parent that don't let your child who is not 18 to do that? The life of your child is more precious to you than NOA. So why should it be NOA crying over your child who is 18, who is not yet 18 but is driving car, and does not have the boldness or the strength
All
for
right,
that.
Mete, I would have to stop you there very quickly. We have to go to the United Nations General Assembly, where Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari is set to address the United Nations General Assembly. The medley show will continue shortly.
Mr. President, on behalf of the government and people of Nigeria, I congratulate you on your well-deserved election as President of the 77th session of this August Assembly. I assure you of the full support and cooperation of the Nigerian delegation during your tenure. I commend your predecessor, His Excellency Abdullah Shahid, for the many remarkable achievements of the General Assembly under his leadership during these challenging times. May I also congratulate the Secretary General, Mr. Antonio Guterres, on his ceaseless and untiring efforts to promote peace, security, and development, very much in line with his exalted role. Mr. President, the first time I could have addressed this August Assembly was in 1984, when I was the military head of state of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. 31 years later, I had the great privilege to personally address the Assembly in 2015 as the democratically elected president of my country. As I approach the end of my second and final four-year term, I am reminded of how much has changed in Nigeria, in Africa, and in the world, and yet how some challenges remain. We are now more severely tested by these enduring and the new global challenges, paramount among which are conflicts increasingly being driven by non-state actors, proliferation of small arms and light weapons, terrorism, violent extremism, malignant use of technology, climate change, irregular migration, and disparities in opportunities for improved standards of living. Despite the challenging international environment, the extraordinary institution is the promotion of peace and security, development, and human rights. Latest in a chain of events challenging these principles is the Ukraine conflict, which has already created strains that are perhaps unprecedented for a generation. Such a conflict will have adverse consequences for us all, hindering our capacity to work together to resolve conflicts elsewhere, especially in Africa, the Middle East, and Asia. Indeed, the ongoing war in Ukraine is making it more difficult to tackle the perennial issues that feature each year in the deliberations of this assembly, such as nuclear disarmament, the right of the Rohingya refugees to return to their homes in Myanmar, and the Palestinians' legitimate aspirations for statehood and reduction of inequalities within and amongst nations. The danger of escalation of the war in Ukraine further justifies Nigeria's resolute calls for a nuclear-free world and a universal arms trade treaty, which are also necessary measures to prevent global human disasters. In this regard, we must find quick means to reach consensus on the nuclear non-proliferation treaty with related commitments by nuclear weapon states. I remain firmly convinced that the challenges that have come so sharply into focus in recent years and months emphasize the call by Nigeria and many other member states for the reform of the Security Council and other United Nations agencies. We need more effective and representative structure to meet today's demands that have since outgrown a system designed for the very different world that prevailed at its foundation in 1945. Change is long overdue. Mr. President, restrictions that characterized the last 3 years, the coronavirus pandemic ripped across national borders like a toxic whirlwind, leaving in its wake a legacy of pain and loss. Happily, we are also witnessed an incredible level of innovation and creativity from those who devised treatments and vaccines. These laudable achievements were underpinned by partnerships and international cooperation. We have also seen the bravery, care, and endurance of health professionals at every corner of the globe. With coronavirus, we saw very clearly how states tried to meet the challenge of a threat that could not be contained within national borders. The results were mixed, but at its best, cooperation among stakeholders was outstanding. It facilitated solutions that saved countless lives and eased the huge burden of human suffering. That same theme of unilateralism and the promotion of national interests competing with the common cause in the face of an existential threat has been our recurring experience in recent times. In every address I have delivered to this August Assembly, I have dwelt on the issue of climate change, especially as it fuels conflicts and complicates food security. Climate change reduces opportunity and prosperity, which in Africa, Latin America, and some parts of Asia also contribute to transitional organized crimes. As part of Nigeria's efforts at achieving our global net zero aspiration, the current administration last year adopted a national climate change strategy that aims to deliver climate change mitigation in a sustainable manner. The measures we took at the national level also require climate justice. Africa and other developing nations produce only a small proportion of greenhouse gas emissions compared to industrialized economies. Yet, we are the hardest hit by the consequences of climate change, as we see in the sustained droughts in Somalia and floods of unprecedented severity in Pakistan. These and other climate-related occurrences are now sadly becoming widely commonplace in the developing world. We are, in effect, literally paying the price for policies that others pursue. This needs to change. At the COP26 in Glasgow last year, I did say that Nigeria was not asking for permission to make the same mistakes that others have made in creating the climate emergency. Fortunately, we now know what we can do to mitigate the effects of the climate crisis and the related energy challenge, the financing and the technology to create a stable and affordable framework for energy transmission. Development financial institutions must prioritize de-risking energy projects to improve access of renewable projects to credit facilities. There should be no countries left behind in this question. Rocketing energy costs worldwide are, in part, the product of conflict and supply disruption to Europe and the Americas. Yet, we are all paying the price. It is therefore our expectation that this UNGA 77 and the upcoming COP27 will help galvanize the political will required to drive action towards the fulfillment of the various existing climate change initiatives. Another feature of the last decade that has been the growing partnership between states and the increasingly influential non-state actors. There was a time when the most important event at this assembly was the speech by the world's most powerful leaders. Now, a tweet or Instagram post by an influencer on social or environment issues may have greater impact. Technology offers us greatly limitless opportunities and sometimes runs ahead of the imagination of regulators and legislators. At its best, social media helps strengthen the foundation of our society and our common values. At its lowest, it is a corrosive digital version of the mob, bristling with intolerance and division. In confronting these challenges, we must also come together to defend freedom of speech while upholding other values that we cherish. We must continue to work for a common standard that balances rights with responsibilities to keep the most vulnerable from harm and help strengthen and enrich communities. Efforts to protect communities from the scourge of disinformation and misinformation must also be matched with efforts to reduce inequalities and restore hope to our poorer and most vulnerable of our communities as a means to stem the many socio-economic conflict drivers with which we are faced. In spite of our efforts, humanitarian crisis will continue to ravage some of our communities. Nigeria, therefore, implores our global partners to do more to complement our endeavors. Indeed, the multifaceted challenges facing most developing countries have placed a debilitating chokehold on their fiscal space. This equally calls for the need to address the burden of unsustainable external debt by a global commitment to the expansion and extension of the debt service suspension initiative to countries facing fiscal and liquidity challenges, as well as outright cancellation for countries facing the most severe challenges. Mr. President, Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, democracy is an idea that crosses time and borders. Certainly, democracy does not have its limitations. The wheels of democracy turn slowly. It can demand compromises that dilute decisions. Sometimes it bends too much to social interests that exercise influence, not always for the general good, in a manner disproportionate to their numbers. But it has been my experience that a democratic culture provides a government with the legitimacy it needs to deliver positive change. In Nigeria, not only have we worked to strengthen our democracy, but we have supported it and promoted the rule of law in our sub-region. In the Gambia, we helped to guarantee the first democratic transition since independence. In Guinea-Bissau, we stood by the democratically elected government when it faced mutiny. And in the Republic of Chad, following the tragic death of its president, the late Idris Deby Itno, in the battlefield, we joined forces with its other neighbors and international partners to stabilize the country and encourage the peaceful transition to democracy, a process which is ongoing. We believe in the sanctity of constitutional term limits, and we have steadfastly adhered to it in Nigeria. We have seen the corrosive impact on values when leaders elsewhere seek to change the rules to stay on power. Indeed, we now are preparing for general elections in Nigeria next February. At the 78th anger, there will be a new face at this podium speaking for Nigeria. Ours is a vast country, strengthened by its diversity and its common values of hard work, enduring faith, and a sense of community. We have invested heavily to strengthen our framework for free and fair elections. I thank our partners for all the support that they have provided our elections. As President, I have set the goal that one of the enduring legacies I would like to leave is to entrench a process of free, fair, and transparent, credible election through which Nigerians elect their choice. Mr. President, the multiple challenges that face us are truly interconnected and urgent, and your choice of this season's theme, a watershed moment, transformative solution to interlocking challenges, is apt, in keeping with our obligation as member states of this noble organization. We will almost do our utmost to work with you towards resolving them. In this regard, I reiterate my delegation's full and resolved cooperation. Let me convey my final reflection from this famous podium. We live in extraordinary times with independent challenges but enormous opportunities. The face of change can seem bewildering, with sometimes a palpable and unsettling sense of uncertainty about our future. But if my years in public service have taught me anything, it is that we must keep faith with those values that endure. These include, but not limited to, such values as justice, honor, integrity, ceaseless endeavor, and partnership within and between nations. Our strongest moments have always been when we remain true to the basic principle of tolerance, community, and abiding commitment to peace and goodwill towards all. I thank you all.
Honorable Assembly.
On behalf of the Assembly, I wish to thank the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria for the statement just made, and I request protocol to escort His Excellency. Sayyid Ebrahim Raisi, President of the Islamic Republic of Iran. I request protocol to escort His Excellency. On behalf of the General Assembly, I have the honor to welcome His Excellency, Mr. Sayyid Ebrahim Raisi, President.
International, live on your TV, computer, iPad, tablet and phone. Log on to visiontv.co.uk and click on Entertainment, then NTA. You can also download the iOS or Android app on your mobile devices to watch NTA International on the go, anywhere in the world. NTA International, your window to the world.
The channel of communication is inherently harmless. It becomes harmful and damaging when used without discretion and thoughtfulness. Bad social media users spread rumors and fake news without verification. But good social media users stop, reflect, and verify information before sharing it. Be a good social media user. Stop the spread of fake news. Verify the authenticity of your source and use social media responsibly for a better Nigeria. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, in collaboration with the National Orientation Agency.
These critics are very insincere. We do not borrow for recurrent expenditure, neither do we borrow to pay salaries. We are borrowing to build world-class infrastructure that will benefit generations of Nigerians. And we have a lot to show for the loans we have taken. Today, the standard gauge rail line between Lagos and Ibadan are running very well. Today, we have new airport terminals in Abuja, in Kano, in Lagos and Port Harcourt. Today, the Itakpe-Warri rail line that was abandoned for decades is now running. Today, we have well over 13,000 kilometers of federal roads under repair, rehabilitation, and reconstruction. There's a road project in every state today. Today, we have started the countdown to when the second Niger Bridge, which successive administrations have built only on paper, will be completed. The list of projects we're handling with the loans we obtained is long.
Pangshin Town, the headquarters of Pangshin local government area and seat of power of the Ngas paramount ruler, the Ngolangas, is some 120 kilometers southeast of Jos, the Plateau state capital.
Social and organizational order created the Islamic Republic of Iran in order to create justice internally and bring to the world order a message of justice and fairness. Key components on this path were spirituality, multilateralism. Ladies and gentlemen, I am grateful and honored to be the representative of a people and a nation.
Hello and welcome to our special broadcast on the general debate of the United Nations General Assembly, August 77. Just a couple of minutes ago, you just listened to the President, Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, addressing the General Assembly. And right now we have the President of Iran talking to the General Assembly. And just like I said a couple of minutes ago, the President talked about a number of global issues and challenges confronting the countries of the world, and specifically talked about conflicts increasingly being driven by non-state actors, proliferation of small arms and light weapons, terrorism, violent extremism, climate change, irregular migration, and other humanitarian crises. This is the 8th time and last that the President Muhammadu Buhari, will be addressing the General Assembly as the democratically elected President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The first time he did was United Nations General Assembly is Malam Nasara Kogo Omar International.
It is my honor to be here.
All right, I also have joining me right now in the studio, Professor Kabir, for making it, Prof.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
All right, Malam Kogo Omar, you've just listened to the President.
Yes.
This is, how significant would you say this is?
Well, first of all, I must appreciate the President in his 15 minutes, 42 seconds speech, crafted in 37 paragraphs. It is really international in nature. He has really demonstrated the position of Nigeria in the Committee of Nations, issue of climatic change and the issue of global peace. And down in Africa, he showed that he is a champion. Talking about the issue of fiscal inequities in the world, the issue of high indebtedness, calling on for global action towards reschedulement of the debt payment and even absolute cancellation of the debts, especially those countries that are facing huge crunch. Then traversing back to the 3 years of the COVID-19 era with the attendant problems that came about, talking about the need for really at the end of it, he talked about the legacies he would like to leave. The legacy of entrenching, free, fair, and credible elections that will be able to give leaders the very leadership they desire. It's really highly commendable. Nigeria has really portrayed, even based on the way he entered, with the aura of his charming charisma, beaming with the smiles of with Gaptus.
Mato, you want to quickly talk about
you're seeing at the small arms and light weapons that has continued to cause tremendous problems and security challenges for us in this country is also a global phenomena, and so many other things. Climate change, the crisis in other parts of the world that have severely impacted negatively on the global economy, which has obvious implication on the national economy. The surge in oil price, the foodstuff and what have you. All these are global problems that are being encountered, but we try to, because we are affected here, so of course we look up to our ruling class and say, look, these are our problems and they are unable to solve them. But the important thing is that these problems are being highlighted by the president on a global stage, and it's a testimony to the fact that these issues are, universal, and of course, all that we need to do is to put our heads together through instrumentality of organizations like the United Nations to see how a holistic solution to these problems will be attained. Otherwise, it will continue to be a huge crisis for various states to try to address. Yes, it's important. It's the components that make up the whole. But where the problem has become so endemic and universal as these challenges are, it's only natural that leaders should put their heads together, present these problems before a global forum such as the UN, address them with a view to evolving lasting solutions, to these problems. And let me say without any fear of contradiction that these are crises, that come, matter of vicious cycle in the life of human societies. You have a time of research, you have a time of recovery, you have a time of recession, boom, etc., etc. So these are the challenges, and I'm sure the president has adequately captured them and put them right on the table of the global stage, so that leaders through, of course, the various agencies, technicalities, experts, and what have we, that will have would make efforts to what's bringing them to perhaps a solution for now.
All right, thank you very much, Professor Mato. Now, Malam Kugo, we've been having addresses like this to this largest diplomatic gathering in the world.
Yes.
How much of benefit or support would you say have come through for Nigeria since we've been having this?
Well, Nigeria is one of the largest beneficiary as far as the issue of international engagements at the level of the United Nations General Assembly is concerned. If you remember very well, not quite in the distant future, I think 2 years back, Nigeria's Professor Mohammed Bande was the chairman of the UN General Assembly. This type of sitting that you see in Nigerian, it is a testimonial fact to the quintessential quality of leadership Nigerians at the diplomatic fora. International diplomacy has led the Commonwealth of Nations for quite some time. And then Nigeria has been the one that is championing the cause of African nations. For example, one of the clear examples is his talk about the need to come to the rescue of Somalia. So whenever Nigeria is talking, we don't restrict ourselves within our domestic forum. And at the same time, too, he talked about what is even going on internationally when he said that individual interests of countries should not be allowed to conflict with the international order, peace and stability.
Well.
Talking indirectly about the happening in between Russia and this in Ukraine, vis-a-vis the implication of it in global politics. And then talking about the issue of the global warming too, especially which is being heated by countries that are European in nature. So Nigeria has been at the apex of according great given leadership at the level of the UN, talking about the glorious periods of when General Joe Garba was the permanent representative of Nigeria, talking about when Professor Gambaritu was the permanent representative in Nigeria, talking about so many other periods when Nigeria used to be the directional pointer regarding the oscillation of the developments of Africa and indeed the entirety of the black nations. So Nigeria is really, without Nigeria at any forum of the UN General Assembly or Council of States, Council of Ministers or Councils of whatever, the dismal absence of Nigeria there will make the agenda unfulfilled. So Nigeria is a quintessential frontline member whenever you are discussing any matter that has to do with human rights, because you talk about human rights protection even today. You talk about human rights protection in the area of global technological advancements, whereby people can easily manipulate technology to suit or to create a peace or otherwise in any part of the world. So Nigeria has been a formidable ally. And then even at the level of the Secretariat of the UN now, we have Hajia Amina Mohammed there, Dr. Amina Mohammed, who is the Deputy Secretary General, apart from so many other secretaries that we are having from the Republic of Nigeria. So Nigeria is really a giant when you talk about culmination or protection of the interests of third world countries, the black nations, and indeed the African continent, which is in tandem with Section 19 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, in tandem with Sections 3, 4, 5, and 6 of the African Charter of Peoples and Human Rights, and the articles of the governance in Africa, and indeed Articles 1 and 2 of the UN Charter itself.
All right, thank you very much, Malam Kogo. You can say that again, Nigeria is the giants of Africa, and we hope to continue to leverage on that and benefit the people of this country. Now, Professor Mato, President Buhari specifically highlighted what Nigeria has been doing regarding climate change, how to mitigate or to join hands with countries everywhere to mitigate the effects of climate change around the world. How would you assess what the country's been doing regarding this in the past?
Well, I think the issue of climate change, again, like all other problems that the president highlighted during his speech, is part of the global, problems that we are facing at the moment. And I think the government is doing fairly well in trying to resolve this problem. It's a problem that actually does not have its origin from Nigeria, and therefore its resolution will not necessarily, have a Nigerian solution. But be that as it may, the government has, a lot of responsibility in this direction, in ensuring that a lot of positive steps are taken in order to mitigate especially the negative impacts of climate change, which apparently is visible everywhere. Today perhaps is the 21st of September, and you can see ordinarily in the last few years, that we passed by the middle of September, the rainfalls are over, especially in certain parts of Nigeria, the north especially. But today we're having heavy, we woke up today. All these are, products of so on and so forth. Are some of the, steps that the federal government actually is taking in order to mitigate that. But like I said, it's a global problem that requires global solution, and therefore tabling it before the United Nations, it's very timely. Again, one of the tragedies of the United Nations since its establishment in the 1940s is the actual efficacy of a lot of the resolutions that it takes. How effectual have these resolutions been? It's the United Nations General Assembly, as we witnessing now, simply serving as a forum for leaders to go and state their local and then global problems. So or does the United Nations, has the capacity in itself to be able to address these challenges of individual member states on one hand, and the general problems that virtually most or all members, of that have. And that's why the president perhaps emphasized very strongly the issue of the democratization of the United Nations Security Council, so that the global community can have that feeling of, sense of belonging in the critical decision-making process of that organization. The Security Council is still an exclusive of very few, mighty nations, and they decide what happens, and across the globe, even within the organization. So that, to a great extent, in my view, has been responsible for the weak, performance in several respects of the organization. I wish that the UNO will truly reform itself, so that, I remember, Nigeria is the largest black nation on the surface of the earth. If Nigeria, for instance, is a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council, you can see the psychological component of attainment that the black race across the globe will have, on the United Nations, and especially on matters relating to Africa, Asia, Latin America. These are countries that are commonly referred to as the third world. They don't have a voice, at the Security Council. And I believe that it's obvious and it's very, very strategic that going forward, the United Nations must begin to think of effectively democratizing itself, democratizing the Security Council by getting, other countries, different interests to be part of it.
All right, Professor Matu, I really appreciate the fact that you brought this democratization of the Security Council to the fore. Now, Malam Kogo,
yes,
one of the global challenge that the world is facing is terrorism and extreme violence. Nigeria is having a very large share of that. I'm sure you agree with me, because of the insurgency, banditry, and all of that we're facing at the moment. Now, would you say Nigeria has indeed leveraged enough on this kind of platform of a General Assembly or UN to combat this, to finding solutions to this challenge we have?
Well, it is necessary for the UN to come into intervention regarding the issue of international terrorism. Terrorism as a concept is international in nature. Paradoxically, you can talk about it in the context of domestic happiness. It is happening here, it is happening here, because of the international law that talks about lex loci celebrity. In other words, the law of the country where the event happens should be the law to be applied. But I think it is high time we modify that one so that you internationalize it. There is an international criminal code. It should be, the jurisdiction should be widened to cover, for example, place of manufacture of any article of terrorism. For example, the place they manufacture guns, the place they manufacture ammunition, the place they manufacture whatever, you understand. The country should be held responsible for allowing influx or outflow, the exodus of all its own products to other nations, because it will be injurious to other nations. So it is necessary for the International Criminal Court aspects of jurisdiction to be widened so that we will be able to hold countries responsible. If you are manufacturing something, you should be able to manage and restrict its own circulation within the bounds of the limited ability. And at the same time, too, there are other areas that need to be distinct. For example, the issue of fiscal democracy in governance. The fiscal democracy in governance here, I'm talking about the issue of movement of funds from one country to the other. There is no machinery to be able to checkmate this type of activities except at the domestic level of national sovereignty. It should be internationalized in such a way that appropriate sanctions for movement of money, articles, and other things without the consent of the originating country. It should be inflicted. For example, when they check our funds without the consent of the domestic decision, it should be sanctioned as illegal money and should be repatriated immediately into Nigeria without going into the technical, rigorous nature of trying to talk about repatriation. The same thing too in terms of areas of trade and investments. It should be regulated in such a way that the currency of the originating country should be the currency of doing international business, rather than dollarization of international global businesses with the dollar of the United Nations denomination. I think if we do that type of things, it will promote and improve economic capacity of other nations. For example, Nigeria, if you are exporting crude oil, the trade should be based on Naira, so that the value of Naira will increase, the quantum of our economic capacity too will increase, rather than using a foreign currency to be able to export what is our own original decision. Another area too is for the United Nations organization to bring about institutional mechanism whereby countries should not be seen to be above the law. In a situation whereby it is against the law for you to use nuclear arsenals, for you to use whatever, talking about the reference of the case of the United States against Iran, Iraq, Libya, and so many other countries, or the case of the seeming aggression of Russia against Ukraine. All these type of things there should be an institutional mechanism to be able to checkmate, to be able to show that no nation can impose its wills over and above international decorum, international peace, and international stability. At the same time too, it is very, very important, like my brother talked about the issue of democratization. There are countries that really, whether you like it or not, they are very, very important, bold countries in global matters. Talking about countries like India, talking about countries like Turkey, talking about countries like Brazil, talking about Nigeria here in the African context, and Egypt to some extent. These countries definitely should be considered for democratization. If democracy, like the president said, is a quintessential model of leadership that the whole world should subscribe to, then it should begin with the leadership of the whole body. It should be democratized in such a way that everybody should feel a sense of equality in the way he is being governed by the global body. Yes.
Thank you very much, Malam. So, all of these issues that you have thrown up from one country is posing threat to another, and then democratization of the Security Council. Certainly, United Nations is not oblivious of these issues. But over the years now, would you say this organization has been proactive enough to doing certain things, like Malam Kogo has just pointed out, the issue of Russia and Ukraine, or is it just a matter of a toothless bulldog?
Well, I think it's more like a toothless bulldog actually than an institution that has the capacity to back and bite. The crisis, the tragedy of the United Nations organization now is that it has assumed a very partisan, perspective, in the sense that it seems to support, the Western world much more than the other part of the world. Even the war against, between Russia and Ukraine, you can see the direction of the United Nations is apparently more towards Ukraine, because that's where the bulk of support from the Western world actually comes from. And a functional organization like the UN should be an independent arbiter in a situation where it's unable, to resolve the contention that exists between two of its members. And this is not what we are seeing. What Minister is talking about really rears its ugly head, all over. Look at the crisis in Iraq from 2000 up to the last invasion of Libya and so on, Syria, by the United States of America. There was clearly a decision, a veto by a member of the United Nations Security Council, but the United States of America went ahead to do as it wished. And now that Russia is invading Ukraine for reasons that they define as internal to them, the Western world is not seeing any reason and is defining Russia from all sorts of negative perspectives. Remember what happened in Iraq? Remember what happened in Libya? Remember what happened in Syria? All these are wars that were fought, or the invasions that actually took place right before the eyes of the United Nations organization. The crisis in Rwanda, the genocide. If you visit the War Museum in Rwanda, the Genocide Museum in Rwanda, the first thing they tell you is that they kept talking to the United Nations, and the tragedy of it all was that the Secretary General of the United Nations at that time was an African. To tell them a genocide is taking place, a genocide is about to take place. Unfortunately, the United Nations could not do anything until about 1 million people were slaughtered and bombed in Kigali and the environment. So the functionality, the effectiveness of the United Nations, as far as the African continent and other third world nations is concerned, really comes to question when you see, the biased nature, that certain decisions are taken. But of course, as a responsible member of the international community, we have no choice than to be party, to what's happening there, to go there, say our minds, and so on and so forth. And so these are some of the challenges that the global union is facing at the moment. And for it to go forward, one of the ways, of course, is to democratize the Security Council. And secondly, also, for it to realize that the membership of United Nations organization is based on the sovereignty of the individual states actors that are there. Not that this is United States of America and then this is Russia. This is Britain, this is Nigeria, this is France, this is Senegal. If it continues like that, it will going to end up or continuously serve as simply a forum where leaders will sit at the beginning or at the end of every year and begin to, sermonize about the problems that they are facing in their countries and the need for intervention and positive intervention, for that matter, from the global body. So the UN organization, in my view, has to do more. It has to be reformed. It has to realize what time it is for it to continue to serve the purpose that brought it in the first place. The fellow of the League of Nations was responsible for the emergence of United Nations organization, and it appears that we are still not prepared, to understand the history and the genesis of the evolution of this, global body, and for it to be able to play the roles that are expected of it by the entire global community. A nation of over 200 million people like Nigeria should be a nation that must be lifted, adequately represented, and even not for the sake of even the black race.
Thank you very much, Professor Mato. Now, Malam Kugo, like Prof just said, how do we have a true United Nation that says indeed can live up to expectations of what we want as nations of the world, and then to reduce more Russias coming up that can stand against a united world?
Well, in addition to the need for democratization of the UN in all ramifications, it is very, very critical. We advise that countries like Nigeria should spearhead strengthening of leadership at the continental and regional levels. The strengthening of some institutions that should be evolved at the African level, at the regional level of West African sub-region. We should be able, in fact, Africa and indeed the entirety of the third world will never get it correct so long that veto power exists, so long that there are permanent and non-permanent members, so long that veil of inequity is not removed, and so long Africa did not consider the need for you to have your international monetary system unified. You have to have uniform monetary system within the African continent, or beginning with the West African region, and then you need to have standby force that will be responsible for dedication of the entrenchment of democracy within the geopolitical region. You should be able to have a force, African Defense Force. You should be able to have it, and then you should try as much as possible to have commonality of leadership style. In a situation whereby you have different forms of leadership within the African region, and then you have different linguistic divisions, instead of having one lingua franca for West Africa or for the entirety of Africa, it is definitely, bringing you as cheap commodities for continuation of imperialism by your earlier superpowers who were the colonial masters at that time. So Africa is still facing that the external string control of the former supermasters. No, every leader in Africa, every leader in West Africa should consider himself independent, should dedicate his sovereignty to the interests and aspirations of his people, rather than trying to find out what the international community is interested in, especially their former colonial masters. So we need to have one independent, uniform type of political system, one independent unit type of economic institution, one independent unit type type of currencies for Africa and West Africa, one independent unit type of security force. By the time we have these ones, we'll be able to fight terrorism at a more gargantuan level. We'll be able to utilize our own resources to fight external interests in our own natural endowments. One day we'll be able to create a model, Africa model, whether it's democracy, whether it's monarchical or whatever is it. We should be able to create a system in tandem with the interests, aspirations of our own history, culture, costumes, character, and comportment of our own people, so that at the end of it, Africa, by the time we integrate our economy, we integrate our natural resources, we now give ourselves a sense of peace. We have uniformity of currencies. We have economic blueprint, economic system whereby we will not be in any need of any IMF or World Bank or whatever imperial institutions. Africa is potentially, one day, by the time we implement these things, we will be definitely a superpower to be reckoned with in global happiness.
All right, indeed, Nigeria should be a global or a big nation to be recognized by the world. Of course, as a giant of Africa, it should be. And on that note, you've been watching a special program on the President Buhari's address at the UN General Assembly in New York, United States of America. And I have been talking to Malam Nasaraku Gomar, international analyst on governance and nation building, and of course Professor Kabir Mato, political scientist. We have been very, very obliged for having you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, that has been the program, and our regular programmings will continue after now. Thanks a lot for your time.
Watch NTA International live on your TV, computer, iPad, tablet and phone. Log on visiontv.co.uk and click on Entertainment, then NTA. You can also download the iOS or Android app on your mobile devices to watch NTA International on the go, anywhere in the world. NTA International, your window to the world.
Research has it that tribal marks were better to aid the identification of an individual's lineage. The parents of a newborn would add tribal marks to differentiate their offsprings from other ethnic groups. In the southeastern part of Nigeria, these marks are largely temporal, while some are permanent. Uli are temporal lines that create various shapes in female bodies. They last for about 7 days before wearing off. They are drawn with light dyes, usually of yellow, black, white, and brown colors. Uli drawings is mainly used for celebrations. Its main purpose is to beautify a woman and make her look more attractive for tribal holidays. CBD marks are used on wall drawings, wooden stools, metal designs, paintings, and for some they can be used as body tattoos. There are over 500 known CBD symbols with various meanings. Awanje marks are spiritual protection given to children who are under any form of life-threatening sickness. Some Igbos believe that the only way to protect children from being taken away by evils are to leave marks on their bodies. Ndri is in sunlight curved lines that go from forehead to male chin and across the cheeks. It is usually used by people from Okanri territories. Ichi scarification is something an individual voluntarily experiences. Ichi are marks for affluence and social status. It is not for children. The process is usually painful because it is done with knives and the scars remain there for life. Such procedure lasts for an hour. The scarification is an evidence that the wearer has passed the initiation into the aristocratic Nzenozo society. In the present-day southeastern Nigeria, tribal marks is almost non-existent. From temporal to the permanent marks, their traditional meanings are still relevant.
House of Representatives investigates production sharing contracts of the NNPC from 1990 to date. Antonio Guterres wants world leaders to act now to avoid a climate catastrophic future. Gold prices at 2.5-year low as traders brace for U.S. Federal Reserve outcome. Plus, oil prices surge more than 2% as Putin mobilizes more troops. This is Business Express coming to you on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority, the NTA. I am Leah Katun Babatunde, your guide. A very good afternoon to you, and we start by informing you that President Muhammadu Buhari says his administration has adopted a national climate change strategy with the aim to deliver climate change mitigation in a sustainable manner, as well as advocating for climate justice. The president stated these while addressing the United Nations General Assembly in New York, United States of America. Global greenhouse gas emissions need to be slashed by 45% by the year 2030 to have any hope of reaching net zero by 2050. Sadly, emissions are going up at record levels, and United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres wants world leaders to act now to avoid a catastrophic future. Onengie Fineface has details.
Climate change, a scorching earth, drowning cities, loss of biological diversity, and pollution are themes central to presentations at the United Nations 77th General Assembly. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres warns that the world must end the suicidal war against nature.
Mega drought in China, the United States and beyond, famine stalking the Horn of Africa, 1 million species at risk of extinction. No region is untouched. And we ain't seen nothing yet. The hottest summers of today may be the coolest summers of tomorrow. Once-in-a-lifetime climate shocks may soon become once-a-year events. And with every climate disaster, we know that women and girls are the most affected.
Planet Earth, Guterres says, is a victim of scorched policies where the poorest and most vulnerable, those who contribute the least to this crisis, are bearing its most brutal impacts. He notes that although fossil fuels cannot be shut down overnight, a just transition pathway must be followed, leaving no person or country behind.
Vulnerable countries need meaningful action. Loss and damage are happening now, hurting people and economies now, and must be addressed now, starting at COP27. This is a fundamental question of climate justice, international solidarity, and trust.
He says it is high time to put fossil fuel producers, investors, and enablers on notice that polluters must pay, calling on all developed economies to tax the windfall profits of fossil fuel companies. Those funds should be redirected to countries suffering loss and damage caused by the climate crisis, and to people struggling with rising food and energy prices across the world. Onengiye Fine Face.
Thank you, NTA. Nigeria needs a well-defined roadmap for a seamless energy transition initiative designed around the vast potential of local resources. The place of women in the roadmap was a major talking point at the 2022 National Conference of the Association of Professional Women Engineers of Nigeria in Abuja. Calvin Inobai reports.
Impact of climate change has forced world-leading industrial nations to commit to cutting carbon emissions significantly by 2030. African countries are expected to join the global efforts to protect the ozone layer and the environment with the adoption of alternative energy sources as one of the most viable ways of achieving the goal. The energy transition process also opens vast opportunities for new jobs and investments in the renewable energy subsector. Why this can be good news for Nigeria, with the largest alternative energy market in Africa, it also offers women engineers a chance to assert themselves and get to the top of the professional ladder they have gradually climbed in recent years.
How do we transit? What's our own strategy? We can't just be doing follow, as they say. We must look at the realities of our own situation. And that's what we are talking about. And chart a course that will not be detrimental to us as a people and as a nation.
APAN has evolved into an educational and service organization on a mission to increase the number of women that are practicing engineering. This is to fulfill our vision, being an advocate for the advancement of women in engineering profession towards national and global technological development.
The 2022 APWEN National Conference was an avenue to recognize agencies, organizations, and individuals who are serving as torchbearers for the advancement of women and girls in science and engineering. In Abuja, Kelvin Ewonwaye.
Thank you, Calvin. Nigeria's government recently launched its Energy Transition Plan (ETP), which is targeted to be its homegrown, data-backed and multi-pronged strategy to achieve net zero emissions by 2060. It is also aimed at solving energy poverty and lifting 100 million Nigerians out of poverty. The plan is estimated to cost more than $400 billion. How to achieve this plan is our talking point on Business Express this afternoon. And joining me from Port Harcourt is Billy Gillis Harry. Mr. Billy is, of course, the president of Petron. You're welcome to Business Express.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, Nigeria.
Good afternoon to you. The plan focuses on 5 critical energy sectors: power, cooking, oil and gas, transport and industry. What is your take on this plan?
Well, first of all, I must commend Nigeria, especially the Vice President, who has taken the bold initiative to announce these energy transition plans ahead of COP27. Obviously, this is one outing that I would say Nigerians have started maybe taking their rightful position to be leaders in Africa. So I commend the Vice President, and I believe that if we put our best effort forward, put a plan, 2060 is 38 years away from now. So that's quite a lot of time. And it's important, that we get it right, plans in a way that year by year and government by government, it will be followed through to make sure that it's successful. So it's a very good idea. The launch was successful virtually. We hope that when the physical discussions start, it's going to be as productive and as clear as the launch was.
Yeah, of course. We're looking out for productivity and a very clear sense of direction. But then from exploration to processing, transport and the end use, it can actually be expensive, 410 billion US dollars. The question here is how and who will finance it?
Well, if that's a question for me to answer, I am not in the economic team of the president, but as a businessman, as a private sector businessman that has learned to turn pennies into nairas, I mean kobbos into nairas, I should be able to anticipate and proffer some kind of solution that's armchair based. First of all, we all know Nigeria leading very badly. And we now need to get to the point where we must know that we need to change our focus. We don't need to banter rhetorics. We need to really sit down and do the real business of how we can, first of all, save our country from collapse. We are needing money. We are needing money that we need to put into this economy to grow the economy. 410 billion US dollars is humongous. But with a good plan, Nigeria has a resource that is capable of producing that kind of money within this same 38-year time range. So all that is required is adequate planning, real sector planning, and knowing that one time we were saying that we had enough money and our problem was to spend. Now, we don't have enough even to meet with our daily needs. So it's important that these ambitions set us now in a process to start thinking about how we raise money and how we can protect this money to be able to do what we want to do. Because if you look at the plan that the vice president presented, most of it is based on climate partners, partners who can be able to work with us, who can be able to give us the best answers that we need to help us raise the money. He's already made offer for carbon emission exchange, the carbon capital, bank that should be. We as a country must wake up and know that we need to work hard. We need to stop spending money that we don't have, and we need to put it together. Because 410 billion is not too big for Nigeria with the kind of resources that we have.
Okay, I'm glad you're already speaking to the proposed debt for climate swap deal. Can you give us a sense of understanding what does it entail and what will be the benefit for Nigeria?
Well, what it entails is that from what the vice president has proposed, look, we're already in debt to several countries. Most of these countries are very, very interested in making sure that the carbon emission is reduced drastically to ensure that there is climate stability. Right today, many parts of the world are already going to be extinct by cold, ice, water, different kind of thing that the climate change, because the temperature change can, deal that, fatal blow. So those countries are interested, and Nigeria is owing a lot of money. So what the vice president has said is, hey, look, we are an oil and gas producing country, so of course we are a guilty party when it comes to the carbon emission. But here we are, we're going to take, very studied decision on how we can reduce our carbon emission and get a credit. And in doing so, give us debt forgiveness in exchange for this good conduct to save the earth. So it's a win-win situation for any of these countries that have already loaned us money and are being impacted negatively by climate change, that this carbon emission swap deal that the vice president has proposed on behalf of Nigeria will work for Nigeria. And of course, it's one very sure way also of raising this money to meet our $410 billion benchmark.
Of course, we're already also seeing the effects of the Russian Ukrainian crisis on most of these economies with winter coming. Now, do you see these economies patronizing Nigeria, buying our gas, and how will it work for us?
Well, again, it requires for prudence and very prudent management and frugal expenditure. Nigeria we are actually more a gas economy than an oil economy from the data that has already been mined and published, that have enough gas to give us a good run for the next 300 years. So if our gas production is well catered to, we try to make sure that our pipelines are not vandalized. We have our young people across the whole country, whether it's in Niger Delta or it's in the Northeast, embracing and looking forward to an egalitarian society with very robust economic benefits. The fine projects that's already been planned all the way to Morocco will give us the benefit, because once we're in Morocco and then we head into the Mediterranean, we are already, almost in Europe. And once our gas lands Europe through pipeline from production, we are going to be the new gas right to be courted by the world. So I think that European nations should be able to work with us, this time not as a beggarly nation, but as a contributory factor, economic factor to changing how the energy distribution functions. And Nigeria, of course, is very well known for that. We need to start being efficient in our management and also being frugal in our expenditures.
Okay.
So I think that this war will give us a win situation.
Okay, great. So, all right. Before I let you go, still about meeting the 2016 net neutrality goal by Nigeria. Is the energy transition plan feasible when you look at it as an industry player? Because some people say we're being over ambitious. Which side of the divide do you fall in?
There is nothing Nigeria cannot achieve. There is nothing in this world that Nigerians are not leading. There is nowhere, no science, no economy, no economic activity, no arts that you will not find in Nigeria, presenting and playing lead roles. So it's very, very clear that we must be positive in believing in our country and ourselves. And I want to encourage everybody who's a Nigerian that we have a country that could easily become a world power. And all we need is to believe in ourselves, work hard, and get to all, dot all the I's and cross all the T's that should make us to become successful. So $410 billion US. It's not, look, go and check the budget of Texas as the states. So there is really nothing that Nigeria cannot achieve if we put our hearts to it. And I think that we can do that. But let's get our acts right and get moving.
Okay, great. Thank you there. Billy Gillis Harris joined us all the way from Port Harcourt. Do have a nice day.
Thank you so much.
Great. Oil jumped more than 2% on Wednesday after Russian President Vladimir Putin announced a partial military mobilization, escalating the war in Ukraine and raising concerns of tighter oil and gas supply. Brent crude futures rose 2.4% to $92.79 a barrel after falling $1.38 the previous day. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude was at $86.05 a barrel, up 2.5%. The House of Representatives has commenced investigation of the joint venture businesses and production sharing contract of the NNPC from 1990 to date to ascertain whether the procedures were within the ambit of the law.
It should be noted that the joint venture agreements and production sharing contracts are supposed to protect the interests of all parties. However, there are concerns that these agreements are being observed in breach.
Infractions in the oil and gas business, either by the operating companies or individuals within the sector, has a corollary effect on the Nigerian economy.
So I'm amazed when the Accountant General of the Federation, even for record keeping, does not have something like this. And no wonder we are experiencing preponderance of leakages in our revenues, our investment is not tracked.
Meanwhile, the House of Representatives says it will continue to enact laws that will enhance the expansion of Nigeria's capital market. This is contained in a message by the Speaker, House of Representatives Femi Gbajabiamila, to a public hearing on two business-related bills.
Our institutions are properly grounded to perform their functions, execute their mandates, and serve the best interests of the Nigerian people.
It is my earnest desire that during this public hearing, we as citizens of these great nations will ensure all hands are on deck for the good and prosperity of investors in the capital market of our great nation.
There is no doubt that Nigeria needs and in fact deserves an internationally competitive and well-functioning capital market to facilitate the ongoing economic diversification. The passage and enactment of the Investments and Securities Bill 2022 will be a pivotal step in this direction.
We commend the SEC for the quality content of the bill, and we support the passage of this bill.
We welcome the review of the Investment and Securities Act.
This bill seeks to expand the scope of the current regulation and bring in more capital market operators under one umbrella body.
And of course, information just coming in shows that equities of the Nigerian stock market have continued to record declining closing figures. This Wednesday was not an exception. At the close of the midweek trading session, the NGX All-Share Index dropped to 49,421.91 points from 49,445.31 points recorded the previous day. A total of 51.87 million shares valued at 590 billion naira were also traded by investors in 2,981 deals with market capitalization closing out the session at 26.65 trillion naira. Zenith Bank, Guarantee Trust Holding Company and Sterling Bank were the top traders in terms of volume. Look now at global stocks with Boss Abel. Okay, Boss Day is not ready with that report, so we move now to the global commodities markets. Boss Abel is ready for us now with a global stock market update.
Investors expect that the central bank will deliver its third consecutive 0.75 percentage point rate hike to tame high inflation at the conclusion of its latest two-day policy meeting Wednesday. A higher than expected consumer price index reading in August and hawkish comments on rate hikes from federal leaders have weighed on stocks, with more pressure likely ahead as its central bank continues to fight inflation. US stock futures rose slightly Wednesday as leaders looked ahead to a potential interest rate hike announcement from the Federal Reserve later in the day. European markets were cautiously higher on Wednesday as investors in the region braced themselves for another aggressive interest rate move from US Federal Reserve. Shares in the Asia Pacific traded lower. The Nikkei 225 in Japan dropped 1.36% to 27,313.13. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index fell 1.79% in the final hour of trade, and the Shanghai Composite also lost 0.17% to 3,117.18. African markets also reacted to the global trend with stocks in mixed territory. Nairobi's all-share index and Namibia's overall index traded positive. South Africa's GSE Africa Top 40 and Tunisia's Tunidex were negative, while Ghana's GSA Composite remained unchanged. Boss Swede Able, Business Express.
That wraps Business Express for today. Remember to keep in touch with us, so do send in your comments, observations, questions, and suggestions. Also be informed that all previous episodes are available on the YouTube, on the NTA's channel. You can also communicate with us via our various social media platforms. Business Express returns Thursday at 9:30 a.m. I'm Leah Kating Babatunde saying be safe out there and God bless Nigeria.
"24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can watch NTA International live on your TV, computer, iPad, tablet, and phone. Log on to visiontv.co.uk and click on Entertainment, then NTAI. You can also download the iOS or Android app on your mobile devices to watch NTA International on the go, anywhere in the world. NTA International, your window to the world.
Hello and welcome to another amazing edition of your weekend.
I'm telling you, oh, it has to be heat, and it has to be steamy, it has to be hot. But we've decided that, somebody has to tell a story that is family oriented.
Welcome to another edition of Talking Movie. Film news everyone ever cared about.
See, when you say pour out, you can't call water because you don't excavate water.
This is a #1 program, Gallery.
Do you love to gist or gossip?
If marriage is it is extremely wrong. And we love it.
Hello everyone, welcome to another exciting episode of Whip and Grill. Welcome to the slant today, where we say it as it is and we get to enjoy ourselves talking about various things that are happening in our society.
I want to hear more, please. Beyond 6 packs.
Because your job still remains as the man to protect the woman, to project the woman.
You need to do that.
NTA, you can't beat the rich.
This is the network service of the NTA.
They say every day is for the thief, one day for the owner of the house. But ICPC, the Anti-Corruption Commission, has reversed the role. It is now every day for the owner of the house. If you're involved in bribery, over-invoicing, or any shady deal, the day of reckoning has come. ICPC, the Anti-Corruption Commission, is watching you. If you're reported for any corrupt practice, you'll be investigated, prosecuted, and punished. Corruption is harmful to our nation. Join the campaign against it by reporting any corrupt practice to ICPC, the Anti-Corruption Commission. Break the chain of corruption now. Don't give, don't take. This message is brought to you by ICPC, the Anti-Corruption Commission.
How can it get better when we do not want to be better people? Do not want to be better. A lot of them, it's just a waste of way. I'm a politician, no they try for the case. So tip then the tip for. Then go carry our money, then go carry up to oversee. Na 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 na. People know they try, them a loot, them a scam, them a bribe every time. Instead, make we try, make we find solution. We can't fight, we they do corruption. In every situation, we need to be better. Corruption is not the solution. They no more looting, no more bribery, no more scamming. I know we should be better. Things can be better if we make ourselves some better people.
Corruption is recognized as a global threat to peace and security, and in every clime where it is entrenched, criminality and insecurity prevail. Insecurity in the form of insurgency, armed banditry, robbery, kidnapping, and so on is rampant in the country, and corruption frustrates government's attempts to address the challenge. Welcome to Corruption Must Go, ICPC's weekly television program. I am your host, Hawasani Garba. Today on the program, we shall focus on the recently concluded National Policy Dialogue on Corruption and Insecurity in Nigeria, convened by the Anti-Corruption Academy of Nigeria, ACAN, the research and training arm of ICPC at the Commission's headquarters in Abuja. Stay with us.
Fellow Nigerians, do you know that constituency projects are actually your projects? Do you know that constituency projects are funded by the federal government? Do you know that you can track release of constituency project funds for projects located in your constituency and follow up to know how they have been executed? Constituency projects happen because government does not want to leave any community out in development efforts. You have a responsibility to know what constituency projects has been planned for your community, how much has been allocated for it, and whether value for money has been delivered. Take ownership of constituency projects located in your community. Protect them because they belong to you. Government knows about your needs and is planning for you. Government needs your help to ensure quality delivery. Know that constituency projects are actually your projects. Protect your constituency project. My constituency, my project.
For information on funds allocated to projects in your constituency, call 0800 2255 4272.
This message is from the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission and the National Orientation Agency.
If you are just tuning in, this is Corruption Must Go. The policy dialogue on corruption and insecurity in Nigeria, which was held on the 9th of September 2022, was aimed at identifying the drivers of corruption-induced and corruption-enhanced insecurity in Nigeria, internal mechanisms within agencies that can enhance capacity for fighting corruption, system-wide approach for incorporating anti-corruption measures, as well as recommending approaches for tackling corruption-induced insecurity in Nigeria. Speaking at the occasion, ICPC Chairman Professor Bolaji Owasonye, SAN, gave examples of how massive corruption was fueling insecurity in Nigeria and called for collaborative efforts of security, law enforcement, and anti-corruption agencies. Take a listen.
Experts have attributed the aggravation of insecurity partially to misapplication and misappropriation of funds in the defense sector procurement practices. Investigations by anti-corruption agencies seem to bear this out. What is worse is that soldiers are often reported in social media of complaining of being poorly equipped and poorly motivated. These challenges can be partly traced to the revelation by the Center for Democracy and Development that about $15 billion have been squandered through fraudulent arms procurement deals in the last 20 years in Nigeria. While the ICPC and EFCC are investigating some of these anomalies, our efforts will not yield much without the proactive prevention measures and a review of external procurement practices. ICPC, in furtherance of our statutory mandate to prevent corruption by a review of systems, processes, and practices of agencies of government, and to direct improvement where they predispose to corruption, has through its research and training arm convened this policy dialogue. We hope that informed views and contributions from the broad spectrum of stakeholders present here will clear misconceptions and offer new recommendations for dealing with this issue.
You are still watching Corruption Must Go, and our focus is on the National Policy Dialogue on Corruption and Insecurity in Nigeria. At the event, the President of the Senate, Dr. Ahmed Lawan, who declared the dialogue opened, lamented that insecurity has affected economic growth and good governance in the country. He said that the situation has stopped rich individuals from investing in the country, as well as huge loss of foreign direct investments. The Senate President therefore advocated for joint efforts by citizens and government departments alike to tackle the problem of corruption, noting that the anti-corruption fight cannot be left for ICPC alone. Let us hear him.
Insecurity is a worldwide phenomenon, and Nigeria is no exception in this regard. Our country has been facing the challenge of insecurity, especially insurgency, since 2009. Despite the government efforts to curtail the menace, it has developed other manifestations that have slowed down the sustained effort of the government on this problem.
Welcome back. The National Security Advisor, NSA, retired Major General Babagana Mungunu, in his remarks, noted that insecurity has taken a toll on governance and public financing as a result of corruption in the security sector. The NSA, who commended some of the tools deployed by ICPC to tackle corruption in government ministries and departments, advised for a refocus on the root causes of corruption to enable a corrupt-free Nigeria.
Corruption is a chemical world
that has regrettably permeated virtually all segments of our society with attendant consequences on the polity, economy, and security of the nation. In the public sector, it has taken a considerable toll on the government's capacity to effectively meet its obligations of providing security and welfare for the citizens in fulfillment of the primary reasons for governance. The resultant deprivation of wants, stoked frustration and desperation among citizens and could push some of them into committing all forms of vices in a bid to overcome poor quality of life and living standards. This is because corruption entails the mistreatment of public resources just for getting some unfair advantage through the use of power and position by anyone, whether in the government or non-governmental organizations, to the detriment of others. Indeed, the consequences of corruption or insecurity were clearly captured in the vague assertion of Mr. President that if we don't kill corruption, corruption will kill us.
Goodwill messages were presented by the Chief of Defense Staff, Lieutenant General Lucky Erabo, representative of the Inspector General of Police, the President of the Nigeria Labour Congress, Comrade Ayuba Waba, and the Honorable Minister for Interior, Ogbeni Rauf Aregbesola.
Without development, there can be no security. And without security, there can be no development. The National Policy Dialogue on Corruption and Insecurity in Nigeria, therefore, is not only time, but also appropriate as we try to curb the challenges of insecurity in our dear country. His Inspector General of Police commend Professor Buhari and his management team for their foresight and quality leadership disposition as manifested not only in the organization of this dialogue, but in the impact they have given to the national world. In congratulating the RCP for initiating this conversation, it is our hope that the dialogue will be frank and fair-reaching, and the outcome will be potent enough to address the threat of corruption and insecurity in our beloved country. Let me also join in commending ICPC for this very important endeavor and also register our commitment as workers will continue to be committed to the fight against corruption. Corruption in Nigeria, as already stated, is a very systemic and real problem affecting every fabric of our society, and all institutions, public and private, are actually affected, including our very regarded religious institutions. It has actually contributed to the crisis of insecurity in Nigeria. First is the issue of managing even the scarce resources allocated to fighting insecurity, and two is about the issue of how we prioritize also the management of human capital development, including our armed forces. It was the former head of the UN Office on Drug and Corruption, Antonio Mario Coach, that once said that money looted from public treasury in Nigeria, if tapped together and stretched to the space, it should get to the moon and back 45 times. This is the reality of the challenge. Not all Nigerians are corrupt, but we have few that are actually giving us a very bad name and bad image. And all of us must work together to fight against this few. Among other moves, Nigeria is taking appropriate measures to tackle corruption at global regional level. Virtually corruption activities will now involve financial assistance. In this age, you can only carry out day-to-day transactions without needing digital footprints. Terrorists, bandits, kidnappers need financial lifeline to operate. And when the criminal collect cash is that we go right into the financial system. These financial movements have local and international dimensions. It is important therefore to enhance the capacity of our law enforcement agencies for high-profile investigation and diligent prosecution in order to meet global standards of protecting our integrity as a nation and prevent from being used as a safe haven for the money of corruptly obtained money. In this regard, Bishop Material ICPC and relevant MPs all have a role to play in the effort to combat corruption and security. Cooperation among all stakeholders to synergize their activities, particularly in critical areas of information and intelligence sharing, to be enhanced. This is in recognition of the dynamic nature of crime and expertise of criminals and terrorist groups in diversifying their criminal activities. I am confident that this policy dialogue we are doing here today will facilitate the development of critical skills for enhanced identification, deterrence, and prevention of corrupt practices and better equip our law enforcement agencies to undertake the responsibility imposed on them. I must commend all the law enforcement agencies, particularly their corruption officers, for their diligence and hard work. I would also like to extend warm greetings and due appreciation to the ICT chairman, Professor Buhari, for SAN, for his commitment and progress in carrying out the statutory duty of ICPC to reduce systems and process the work problem corruption in the country.
The traditional and religious institutions were also present as the Emir of Kefi, Dr. Muhammadu Chindo Yabusa, and the President of the Christian Association of Nigeria, Archbishop Daniel Oko, also presented their goodwill messages to the gathering.
I am delighted to be here for Anti-Corruption Agency of Nigeria to participate and give a goodwill message in the National Policy Dialogue on Corruption and Insecurity in Nigeria, which has become problematic despite attempts in addressing the challenges. I commend the Anti-Corruption Agency for organizing a national dialogue and producing a policy guide including the challenges being faced. Let me call on the agency to come up with a concrete models towards eradicating electoral corruption and producing a policy brief that will guide the national response to vote buying phenomenon in our country. I urge anti-corruption agencies and other security agencies to expose misconduct of staff, as well protect whistleblowers on corruption and insecurity in Nigeria. I thank the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission (ICPC) for organizing the National Policy Dialogue on Corruption and Insecurity at this very crucial time in our national history. There is no guaranteeing the fact that these are the settlement ways ravaging our land. It is common knowledge that corruption gives rise to insult and foreign terrorism. And this is because the seeds of corruption so many years have now become obvious. And therefore, commend the ICPC for providing this veritable platform to address the evil of corruption and insecurity just in one day. It is indeed a bold step in the right direction. The corruption from the rich array, contributions from the rich array of resource persons, intellectuals, and leaders of various organizations that are gathered here today will surely enrich the outcome of this dialogue.
A major highlight of the day was a robust discussion on the theme by a panel comprising of Professor Amadou Sissay, Dr. Nwabu Gebre, Kadaria Ahmed, and Professor Isaac Olawale Albert. They dealt extensively on the security situation in Nigeria, the role of CSOs and the media, and early warning and response strategies, amongst other issues.
My name is Jamiu Olamide Farouk. I'm a proud student of Government Secondary School Kubwa. And I would like to talk to everyone about a child's cry on corruption. Nigeria, my country. Come to think about it. Would there ever be a time when only great minds be enthroned as our leaders? A time when corruption is killed and transparency becomes a friend of all. A time when the bridge that exists between the ruler and the ruled are no more. A time when the rope of purity, the noise of kidnapping, armed robbery, money laundering, examination malpractices, Fulani headsmen and farmers clash, Boko Haram abducting our young girls and depriving them from going to school and becoming what they want to be, a place from our hearts. You see, sometimes people often ask me, why are you always so sad? I tell them I don't know, and truly I don't really know. I wake up every day and when I see the high rate of corruption in our nation, Nigeria, I feel so sad, unsettled, depressed, like what's so lucky to be given birth to in this nation. I'm afraid of this nation. I'm afraid of putting my guard down for the fear that I'll be judged for something I can't control. I'm afraid that one day someone will wake me up and tell me, hey, you're from Congo Brazzaville. Come to think about it. Do you think I'd like to watch this nation fail? Do you really think I'd like to watch this nation fall in all of self, hate, shame, and reproach? This is just a cry of the Nigerian child. Because there's a proverb that says, marvel and marveling are greater than heaven. Therefore, taking this thing in mind, let's put more effort not to make this heaven even more heavenly. As a student, I have linked up Nigeria's backwardness and its underlying factors. This imposes as a difficult challenge if I am to promote my country. But as long as I stand firm, I take my mind off the negative factors, I can be successful, yes, in completing my duties. See, many people in Nigeria, I keep asking myself this question, why? Because of their poor condition and settlement. I understand and believe that I should not even think of migrating to foreign countries, but help to make Nigeria a destination country for others. To achieve this, I must work hard. Not only me, we all must work hard. For the previous generation made Nigeria a good place for us to call home. And today, it is my generation's turn to make it more better for the future generation to live in. That being said, I am not capable of doing it alone. Hence, everyone should take their part in it. I will try to help Nigeria in any way I can. But being a Nigerian, I must work hard, which hopefully one day beneficial to my motherland. See, slowly, Nigeria will shine as the brightest star. Why? Because I played my path together with all my fellow citizens living in every nook and corner of Nigeria, giving it everything we had to offer to make our nation proud of us. We should always remember, we should never ever forget that the future started yesterday. We've got to hurry up. We need to hurry up. Because I'm telling you, we are already late. This is a Christ child about corruption.
There is no doubt that the outcome of the policy dialogue will go a long way in charting a course towards solving the problem of insecurity in Nigeria. That's our package on today's edition. Don't forget to follow us on our social media platforms showing on the screen. Please do note that the ICPC Twitter handle is now same as all other ICPC social media handles, which is at ICPC Nigeria. See you again next week for another engaging episode of Corruption Must Go. Bye for now.
when there's a child out there that's not getting the same that your own child is getting, the difference will tell, and there will come a time in the society where that child is going to take his pound of flesh.
Where you can actually, everything from watching a program with the child, you can start up the conversation from something on the TV and say, oh, you know.
For me, it's like, hurry up with this business. And you know what said, actually, it's not about me, it's about the guys. They're not ready to marry.
If she wants to ask something, no, I know my mother very well. In fact, the most interesting one is when I put up pictures on WhatsApp, you know, Snapchat filters and all that. She will call me, remove that picture.
Hours a day, 7 days a week. You can watch NTA International live on your TV, computer, iPad, tablet, and phone. Log on to visiontv.co.uk and click on Entertainment, then NTAI. You can also download the iOS or Android app on your mobile devices to watch NTA International on the go, anywhere in the world. NTA International, your window to the world.
Yes.
Latest entrant, latest technology. Welcome to Intel 4G LTE Advanced and experience super fast internet access today. Visit intel.com.ng or any of our stores in Lagos, Abuja, and Port Harcourt to get started. Intel. Live more.